Friday, May 5th. This is attempt number 2. Facebook are, yeah, I've actually jumped in on a whole, I've done a restart, I've jumped in and I'm using a whole different program now. So hopefully, this will work. So with any luck, so let me know how the sound quality is, and I'm just going to try one more thing. Yep. Oh yes, no, everything. So hopefully we're going to be okay. Now, I am going to recover a little bit of ground, so because I have deleted the other video, and just for those that watch on YouTube, because not everybody watches on Facebook Live, I don't want them to miss out. Oh, much better. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. I don't want them to miss out on the information that we already talked about. So, one of the things I thought today, so I went into the mill, as I mentioned on the previous, and one of the things that had arrived was some new samples. So this is the sample that I picked up from the mill, which is the Weekender Sweater by Andrew Mowry. And this got me thinking, between this and the Rambler, which I'm knitting at the moment, which I absolutely adore, I love it. It is, I thought I really do need to talk about some Southlander patterns, and patterns that can, that I know will substitute really, really well in Southlander yarns. Now, one of the ways that you can check out what will substitute really well in Southlander yarns is to actually look at patterns that have been using Brooklyn tweed, either shelter or loft. And this one here is a really prime example. I think this one uses shelter. Those are the Brooklyn tweed, shelter and loft are gorgeous yarns. They're made using American Targhee wool, woolen spun yarn, so it's a short fiber process, but the handle is very, very similar. And in fact, dare I say it, I actually think our Southlander is slightly softer. Very, very similar, but they've got these lovely rustic effects. And I thought that is a really good place to start. So I thought, well, let's have a look at some of those yarns and get them together. So this is our Southlander here. This is what I'm knitting my Rambler in. We do this in 4 natural shades. So we have cream, which is undyed. And actually, if you ever want to do a little bit of dyeing yourself, like you want to have a play around, and whether it be natural dyeing using mordants and really traditional methods like avocado or onion skin, or you're even just wanting to have a bit of a play around with some food colouring and thrifty drink or anything like that, we do have our naked skeins, which are in huge big 1 kilo cones, which are great for commercial. But if you're just wanting to have a little bit of a play around at home and you don't want to go too OTT using having a really large amount, our Southlander cream is perfect. So we've got it in this 4-ply sport weight, DK/Aran, and then bulky/chunky, right? The cream is completely unprocessed. There's no machine wash application over it. It is really as natural as it can get within a commercial process that we use. So if you're wanting to have a play around and do a bit of dyeing at home, the sport weight comes in 100-gram balls, and the DK and the bulky weights come in 200-gram balls. So you can basically take those balls, make a hank yourself, and then have a bit of fun with dyeing with that. Yeah, so that's a really good tip. If you're wanting to do that, Southlander is definitely the way to go. Sorry, I just went a bit off track there for a sec. But these yarns, we have the natural yarn. So we have the cream, obviously, which is just straight cream. The oatmeal, which is what this is used when we blend cream with about 10% of this black. Then we've got bracken, which is our sort of natural wooded brown shade, and that is made using a mixture of sort of natural brown yarns, and then we will often use cream yarn to get the shade right, because it's like, honestly, baking a cake. When they're actually putting all those fibers in there to blend, the biggest challenge for us with blending any natural fiber like this is trying to get consistency from one blend to another. So Matthew's got this down to a fine art, and so he uses a mixture of natural brown wools, even the odd little hint of some darker stuff like this, and a little bit of cream. And then obviously charcoal is dark fibers. Sometimes we even have to dye a wee bit of dark fiber if we can't get enough, and cream. And that's why you get all this lovely fleckling in there, is because it is actually a blend. Now, our colours in the Southlander range are made by taking that bracken, which is that brownish shade, and then applying colours over the top. So then you get those really lovely, wonderful, rich shades. So that's Southlander. So the Weekender cardigan, which I have there, is this one right here. And the Weekender is worked out on an 18-stitch tension. Now, we knit ours on DK. And we did that primarily because in DK, it gives a really, really nice weight. The DK, the recommended tension on the ball band is 20 stitches, so it's sort of a classic heavy DK Aran weight. What we found with this, though, and I'll just hold it up to show you, as you can see both in the stocking stitch panels there and the reverse stocking stitch there, because of this being untreated and the natural sort of Velcro effect that you have with Southlander, it actually holds itself really, really well, even at a gauge that is slightly outside of its norm. So if you are struggling to, like if you find a pattern, and there's a whole heap out of them out there, at that 18 stitch gauge, often they'll recommend a worsted or a 10-ply yarn. Southlander DK, honestly, is such a good substitute into that gauge, and it gives you really, really good results. So that's what we did our sample on. It also makes sense for us in Hawke's Bay. The climate here is a lot warmer, and so we didn't want a garment that was too heavy. But if you're down south or somewhere where the climate is actually really quite cool in the winter, you could still hit that 18 stitch tension relatively easily using Southlander bulky as well. And so it will actually give you a firmer, denser garment, but it will work just as easily as well. So just again with anything, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this, but always swatch. Have a play around, do your swatching, wash it, see how the fabric looks. But either of those are going to work just fine, because you're working within that middle ground of the gauge of where the yarn actually sits. So when it comes to the Weekender, here it is. 18 stitch tension. The sizing, you're looking at, for the meterages, from around 800 odd meters through to about 1700 odd, which is 3 to 5 balls if you're using DK, or 3 to 6 if you're using the bulky. So it's a really economic pattern to use, and as you can see, it's simple, it's stylish, and it's really, really straightforward to knit. So on that theme of simple, stylish, and straightforward to knit, I then thought, well, let's have a look at other ones that are out there. So the way I did this search, and you could do the search yourself at home, is I jumped onto Ravelry and I actually looked up the Brooklyn Tweed yarns, and I had a look at both shelter yarns and loft yarns. And on one of those tabs, is they'll have the yarn profile page, it will actually have pattern ideas. And if you actually click on those pattern ideas, you'll see a whole range of different designs that have been done for that yarn. And that's a really good way to see, well, what will actually work really well for me, and how can I substitute those out. So when I did that for loft, which is the thicker version, I came across this one here, and it's just literally called the Easy Bulky One by Hohi Locatelli. Now, as you can see, and I'm going to pop it up to the camera nice and close, there you go. As you can see, it is honestly the most straightforward sweater out there, and she even says in her pattern notes it is 2 rectangles with sleeves and a drop shoulder. This is about as simple as it gets, and she also says that it's the perfect sweater if you've not knitted a sweater and you want to knit one for the first time. This is the one for you. Just as an aside, I hate these really long sleeves, so if you're going to knit this for the first time and you've not done a sweater, yeah, watch your sleeve length, because for me personally that does my head in, but that's me. The gauge on this, she had a gauge which I find really intriguing. The gauge on this was 12 stitches, and she used a 5.5mm needle. Now that was a washed and blocked gauge, so I am picking that she does block quite aggressively, because usually I would expect actually maybe 15 to 16 stitches, maybe 14 if you're as loose as a goose, at a 5.5mm needle. Regardless of that, look at that gauge, because, and as you can see, there's oodles of positive ease in this. Use the gauge as a guide only, and do your swatching. And Southlander bulky is the guy that you want to use with this. And as you can see with the colour with this, it's a lovely, I mean, this is printed out quite green on mine. It looked more yellow on the screen, but either or, we've got sort of like gypsy green or goldenrod, which would look amazing in this. And the best part is it only uses, again, 3 to 5 balls of yarn. So they come in lovely big balls. It's really simple and straightforward. So, and I know that often, I'm really glad I found this and I pulled this out, because quite often in at the store, we would get mums coming in or grandmothers coming in who are asked to knit a jumper, particularly for grandchildren or sons or daughters who are away at university, and they want something really simple, like a sloppy joe, basically. And that's really what this is that really relaxed, casual, sloppy joe sort of sweater. So this one is called the easy bulky one, Hohi Locatelli, and yes, I would definitely use the Southlander bulky for that. And I sort of thought, quite an interesting, a really good interesting pattern there. If you want something with a little bit more structure and a wee bit more feminine, I popped this one up. Now this, isn't that gorgeous? And actually it's got this really beautiful little feather and fan feature just here, which I thought was so pretty. Now this is called Leaven Work. It's by Gudrun Johnson, which I just love that. I just think that is so incredibly pretty. It's a 19 stitch tension, so that is right in Southlander DK territory. It uses 3 to 4 balls of Southlander DK. The sizing goes up to about 48 inch, 48.5 inches, and that's at standard ease. Now, just for you guys out there, 48.5 inches, I would get away with that just at a size 22 at a standard ease. But if I wanted to, at that sort of tension, 19 stitch tension on Southlander DK, you could easily, push your needle size up 0.5 millimetre to give you a little bit more leverage at that bigger end if you needed to. But I just thought that was super, super pretty. And look at that with the colour. Wouldn't that look amazing in Southlander Goldenrod, which is pretty much what that colour is. It's just absolutely beautiful. I just love that featuring around the collar. See, and she's gone and done it. See, she's got up there at the collar, the pocket, and then obviously on that hemline, it's also an asymmetrical opening. It's classical, it's rustic, it's simple, but it's not. I think it's absolutely beautiful. If I hadn't already committed to my next project, that could have been it, I tell you. Another one that I wanted to show you, if you're wanting something which has more of a masculine feel, it's this one here. And this one's called Fort. It's by Jared Flood from Brooklyn Tweed. And unfortunately, you possibly can't see on there. Oh, yes, you can a little bit. It's got a really lovely textured stitch. And these sort of textured stitches with Southlander work incredibly well. I mean, I've shown you some ribbed jumpers that I have done in Southlander, and they work great in plain stocking stitch, but when you actually do sort of little simple texturing with it, it just looks so comforting. And I just think that one is a really lovely sweater. It uses that textured stitch as its feature. It's a very classical design. It would suit any age, any stage. He's also gone and done these knitted patches using a finer, I think it was a 2-ply yarn, very, very finely knit on the elbows. You wouldn't need to do that if you didn't want to, but if you did want to, you could actually do that using Southlander Sport. He knits it on a really fine needle, like 2.25. You'd possibly want to do 3 millimetre with Southlander Sport, but you could actually do that if you wanted. But that is a 20 stitch tension, so this is definitely Southlander DK territory, like perfect, absolutely ideal. And again, 3 to 5 balls, so it's I really like that. And so that's called Fort by Jared Flood. Now I have already pre-done, I'm going to dump all of these links at the end of the video. Just remind me, will you, because I'll forget, but I have done them for you. What's next? What's next on the board, Miss Ford? The next one, I think I'm going to show you let's stay with textured stitches. This is a good segue. Now, I have actually featured this before on videos last year when it came out. This is Marie Green's Travelest. from the One Ocean collection that she did as part of Pacifico Knits. I love this. It's a really simple design. It's a quick knit. I quite liked it because it's the sort of layering popover piece that works really well for the New Zealand climate. Marie lives in Oregon, so they get very cold up there in the winter, but they're like us here in New Zealand. They do get very, 4 seasons. And sometimes, particularly this time of year, you want something that you can throw over the top of a blouse, like what Marie's got on here, or here in New Zealand. I mean, how many of us have merinos that we wear, those nice fine merinos, and you could just need something else, another layer to pop over. It's got, and you can possibly see there, a lovely textured stitch pattern. She's done it in this charcoal yarn, and obviously it screams Southlander charcoal every day of the week. And it's a 21 stitch tension, so again, smack bang in Southlander DK territory, and it only uses 3 to 4 balls. It's really economical, and it's just, I just think, a really practical piece for your wardrobe. And I don't think, we're just looking at the schematics on this, it's really straightforward to knit. It's essentially just a front and a back done in that lovely textured stitch, and it's the sort of project that you could probably pull together in a week, no problem whatsoever. And it's the sort of thing as well that if you were going to if it's a layering piece that works really well for you, you could probably do 2 or 3 of them in different colors and actually have that as part of your capsule for your winter wardrobe. So I just really love the practicality of that, the simplicity of that, and with the textured stitching, it's a fairly basic repetitive stitch pattern, so you're not going to get yourself into too much trouble either. Another project from the same collection, the One Ocean collection, is from Libby, and it's this one here called Serpentine. And this is done in a 16 stitch tension, which is exactly Southlander bulky territory. And I love this too because it's this beautiful jadey colour, and we've got Java Bracken, which is very, very similar to this colour, not quite as intensely jade, but very close to it. And this is a beautiful sweater because it's using actually this reverse stocking stitch that this is here on the weekender, but it's using reverse stocking stitch as your main palette, and then Libby's gone and added this beautiful braided cable all the way. It was not even cable, it's like a wave motif all the way down from the shoulder all the way down the arm, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And it just adds a lovely piece of difference. You've got a nice little Guernsey notched hemline there. This it would be one of those sweaters that will be toasty warm. You would just wear it to pieces. As you can see, she's wearing it there with jeans. It's simple, it's straightforward. It would be fun to knit. And in Southlander bulky, it would be utterly divine, absolutely divine. And it would, again, it only needs I've gone and put here 3 to 5 and in brackets 6 because at the largest size it's only about 5 or 10 meters beyond what 5 balls would be, so that would depend very much on your gauge. So if you were to do it to the largest size, you may want to get a 6th ball just to be safe, but to be brutally honest with you, I would be inclined to see how you get on with the 5. But either way, that is called Serpentine. I just think it's utterly divine, really, really gorgeous. So those are all designs that I think will work fantastically well using Southlander yarn. Now, any of those designs that I've mentioned using Southlander DK, and you just can't abide, some people just find it too rustic for them. They just can't work with it. They want something a little bit softer, but they want to actually have that same rich and intenseness and lush look of that sort of flecked kind of style of yarn. There are other options, and the other option is actually black pearl. Now, black pearl is made very similarly to, and I'll just see it with my, where is my bag of tricks? There's my bag of tricks. Just see if I've got another one here that I can show you. Oh yes, I have. Is made very similarly to Southlander. So, oh look, there we go. There's some Southlander Goldenrod. Look at that. It is using a coloured based yarn. There we go. That's what I wanted. And So what, I haven't got the natural one, but what we've gone and done is it's a recycled blend yarn. So it's predominantly merino. And we've got merino, and we've in the black pearl, what we've gone and done is merino, alpaca, silk, which is what gives us this lovely fleck. But we've also added in there for the black pearl some of the natural coloured merino that we have for silver lining. So many of you have got silver lining. Now, actually, now that I'm on to silver lining, if you've got silver lining at home in stash, and I know a heap of you had, and we've had some colours of silver lining available, which we've had as part of the Epic sale and the next sale, and I'm going to photograph this today. This is one of this just came in from the mill today. It was one last one that got missed during the Epic sale. It's in this beautiful, lovely green. I don't know what it's showing like on the camera, but it is actually a lovely mossy sort of a green. It's called Persephone. So this will be going up probably live tomorrow. If you've got silver lining in your stash or pearl, this does make a good substitute instead of Southlander DK. If you don't want something quite so rustic, you want something a little bit softer to wear against the skin. So if you've got Southlander lurking around, if you've got silver lining lurking around in your stash, whatever numbers I gave you there, you just need to multiply that by 4, because these are 50 gram balls. So for example, let's pull out our weekender. There we go. So the weekender there is using 3 to 5 balls of Southlander. So you'd be using 12, so basically 12 to 18 balls of silver lining, because I know that that 5th ball you only need to go halfway through. And the same goes for pearl. So pearl is made in the same way, and in fact it uses the merino that we use, and this has been blended back into this to give it this dark sort of grainy texture. And we have gone and placed some colours over it, and we've actually gone and used a lot of the colours that we've used already in the regular pearl range, which is a white base, and then we've gone and placed these into the black pearl, and it gives you these rich earthy sort of tones. There's also a really lovely rich blue, deep blue called Atataki. Oh, that's what I forgot to get from the warehouse today to finish Louis' scarf. He's going to kill me. Plus, there is also the natural version of this, which is called Sparrow, and that's what I did the kiwi hat in. You may remember that. But this is actually another good option if you're wanting, particularly if the tension is around that, up to that 20 stitch tension, which a few of those are. This is actually a really good alternative. It gives you a really lovely soft garment. You still get that nice stitch definition, you still get that sort of slightly flecky rustic look, but what you are getting is a much smoother and softer yarn. And particularly if you do have sensitivities for something a little bit more rustic, you won't have any issues with these. So they are definitely worth considering as well. So it's a way to sort of get a really lovely natural look into your wardrobe, whether it be something quite traditional or something a little bit more modern like this. So I just thought that it would be really, really fun. And I am going to mention this again now that we're back live for version 2. I did mention at the beginning of the other video that we ditched, this is what I'm going to be working on next, which is Gold Bling by Jennifer Steingast. And as you can see with the one that she has in the image, this is Goldenrod here. I mean, Southlander, Goldenrod, and the oatmeal. Let's put those two together. Ta-da! See, as you can see, really fantastic friends. I personally, put those down. For me personally, I'm actually going to be doing this in oatmeal that I've shown you there, and I'm doing mine in County. And if you're really eagle-eyed and you have actually picked it up, County, as you can see, is a finer 4+ sport weight. Yes, I am doing mine in a finer gauge, and that's just purely because I live here in Hawke's Bay, and I just find that the finer gauge is going to make vastly more sense for me in our climate here than what it would be in a DK gauge. And it's also too because I am getting to an age where, you know, sometimes one does have a tendency to get a touch flushed these days. You know, I don't have to explain. I'm sure many of you have got the same issues. Right, I'm going to jump down and just check and see. Oh, I'm so glad the sound is much better. I think I might just have to ignore Facebook now and just do it through this every other way. Mary's saying, so much better. What did you do? I've completely changed programs, Mary. I'm using the program that I would normally use for when I've got the tandems, but I'm just doing it for me now solo, and it works just fine. I paid for it, so I may as well do it, right? Okay, Southlander 5-ply, will that work well with Noro sock? Yes, Eleanor, it would, and I can show you exactly that because that's what I've got on my Rambler. So I'm going to hold my Rambler up close to the camera so you can see. So I've used Silk Garden. This is Silk Garden sock. And as you can see, so I've got Southlander Cove 4-ply is the blue, the yellow, the rusty there is Little Bandit, and then the Noro. So you've got a couple of options there. You can use either the Soutlanders. Soutlanders work really, really well. Southlander Sport, or Little Bandit. Little Bandit and the Noro sock will be very, very good friends. The other one too to consider as well is Cozy, which is our rainbow range. So if you've got a sock yarn that is, because some of those sock yarns actually can be quite zingy and really crazy and bright. If you're wanting, one of the colours that we do have in that range is actually a pure black. Some people want a pure black as opposed to a charcoal like this. So we do have that in Cozy. We also, though, in Cozy do have the straight pure colours. So if you're wanting, and there's a really lovely indigo, and the green in there is a really rich, solid fern, sort of in between fern and Kelly green. It's a really lovely green. So that works really, really well. So it does work great. Is it knitted on straight needles? Marie. Are you, I'm not sure which ones you're referring to there, Jill. A lot of the ones that I've shown you worked on a mixture of both, but either straights or circulars. You could, if you're referring to this, which I talked about in the last video, this can be worked actually on straight needles, if you can want to do it. Right. Kurt. God, Kurt's such an angel. Kurt's just got and popped up a really good article on sleeve length. I'm actually going to check that article out, Kurt. Sleeve length is an absolute, it's a real bugbear. You know how we all have our funny personal preferences? Sleeve length is one of those things for me. I hate having those sleeves that run over my hands, and I think it's because I'm busy, I'm in the kitchen, because I'm always having to do that. I'm always having to roll my sleeves up or pull my sleeves up. And if you're busy, and particularly you spend lots of time in kitchens, long sleeves are the bane of your life because they're always getting mucky and dirty and messy and wet and in your way. I think it's a busy person thing. So that, I'm going to check that article out actually, because I think it is, to be able to make modifications to your sleeves, it's one of those modifications that is one you would probably use most often. I do it all the time, so it's really good to be able to check out what other designers do. I mean, I have methods that I use, but sometimes for me, you'll read an article like this and you'll get a eureka moment, and it's about those eureka moments, isn't it? Finding them. I mentioned earlier before too, if anyone didn't catch Kurt's video yesterday, do definitely make sure you check it out. It's up on YouTube as well as on Facebook. You may want to skip sort of the first 11 or so minutes, because we had some issues with the technology getting in and out, and the first 11 minutes was me waffling. Padding I was. But once we got into it, from about 11 minutes on, there was some great information, particularly around machine knitting, and Kurt had some wonderful, wonderful samples for you to have a look at. So just for that alone, it's worth having a look. So do go and check that out. Right. Do you have any dolman sleeve jersey patterns in 8-ply? Actually, honestly, Margaret, off the top of my head, no, I don't. And I don't actually. Ravelry, I do know, under construction, and actually we'll have a quick look. We'll have a quick look, shall we, Margaret, while we're here, because we have the power. So everyone will just have to look at my mug as I'm searching other things. Now, Ravelry do have an advanced search function, and not everybody uses, oh, I've got a piece of fluff on my nose. Not everybody uses, you said cardigan, didn't you, darling? Cardigan. Not everyone uses the advanced search function. So in the advanced search function, you can actually often break down Construction, there we go. What have we got there? So I'm going to design elements. So under design elements, there we go, dolman. There is a folder called for a sleeve, and you can put in there what you want. So I've just gone and done this. I'm going to put the search in the comments now, Margaret. So I've just gone and done a very, very basic search under, oh, you put jersey, sorry, I've just done cardigan. But if you go into Ravelry, and you could probably use that link to alter the search, under design, I think it's under construction, what do they call that part? They call it, my friend, attributes. So on the left hand side, if you go to the advanced pattern search, under attributes, if you go down to design elements and click on that, over onto that it takes you to a series of different folders, and one of them is sleeves. So if you click on sleeves, then it gives you all the different sleeves that are available. Dolman is one of those options there, and you can actually click on that, and then it gives you all the patterns that are have been listed or uploaded or registered under that dolman sleeve. And it just helps narrow your search down, because I know that you go to put stuff into Ravelry and 1,500 pages will turn up under sweater or jersey or cardigan or what have you. So it's just a way of narrowing your search down. And often when you do narrow it down like that, it makes life so much easier to be able to find things. So that's what I would do it. Right. Oh, may I have the name of the yarn and the colour of your lovely scarf? From Pat. Right, Pat, yes. As Delene has said here, it's a special for Can from Bleating Arts called 1931. Yes, it is. And it was from Knit August Nights a couple of years ago. She does the souvenir skein each year. And that's it there. And 90, oh gosh. Oh, it didn't like that, did it? Anyway, 1931 is the year of the Hawke's Bay earthquake. So that is the meaning behind that. The pattern is Niada by Martina Bean, which is one of my absolute favourites. Right. Muriel, can you... Sandra from Yarny Army. That's a great idea, Muriel, actually. I will get on to Mrs. McNair and get her on. That is a fantastic... In fact, Muriel, let me write that down before I forget. Sandra... Right, okay. Oh, Kurt, bless him. He's just going to pop to YouTube Watch 2 for measuring a drop shoulder. That's a good one as well. Right. Oh, rido-de-do. Okay. Very good. Okay, I've got a couple of other things I want to tell you. For those latecomers that have come, I'm very sorry that I haven't got the names of the winners. It was one of the things I forgot to get off Claire when I went to the warehouse this morning, so sorry about that. I will get on to it. I promise I will do it. The other thing to let everyone know as well is I'm not going to do Quarantine Diaries on Sunday. I've decided to take a day off. It is Mother's Day, and this mum, she wants a day off. She's worked 41 days straight, and she's starting to get a little bit cranky. So I'm going to have that Sunday off to spend with my boys and my husband and the dogs and just mooch. And I know that you guys will all be busy with your own families as well. So that's what I will be doing. Well, hopefully you will be, even if you're just Zooming them. And then tomorrow, I will be back tomorrow. I want to tell you about some, I'm hopefully going to have the yarns loaded up. Oh, message from Claire. She said that any of you that have been waiting for Outlaw yarns, that has arrived, and she will be uploading. She's been cleared to upload those today. So she literally was in the office doing those uploads. So if you've been waiting for some bandit yarns or Outlaw yarns, they should be up by the end of the day. And she's also getting onto a Knit Pro order too. That's actually, she's already compiled it, and that went in late yesterday, so hopefully we will have that through to by the end of the week. So that is the message from her. But yes, I will be back tomorrow. I'll have a little bit hopefully more progress to show you on my Rambler, and also I'll be able to show you some yarn that I've just actually some ideas with another yarn that we've got quite a bit of in stock, but you may be struggling to find things to do with it. So I thought we would do that tomorrow. But in the meantime, have a great rest of day. Sorry about the false start this morning. I think I've now found my permanent solution. But until then, have a great rest of day, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.